And we're live. This is the check-in for Monday, May 9th. I'm here with AJ Young and Mike Gamache. Let's get rid of that. There we are. We're actually here.
Yes, we're 75% of the crew.
Yes. Yeah. And we're always flexible. This is a casual thing. We're
Yes,
just sort of
very
checking in
much.
on each other to see how everybody is doing. It's been 2 weeks since we've had a gathering, so which is a little bit different.
It's nice to
Hi.
get back to it.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to kind of hang out and see friends.
Yes.
Anyone tuning in, if you want to say hi, feel free to say hi. So, how has your past 2 weeks been?
Kind of like the day after we did the last show, which was April 18th, the day after, my wife and I had to bring my mother-in-law to the emergency because she was in the process of dying on us. We caught her in time. She didn't die. Good news. And she's still in the hospital, but she's starting to fight back, and there's hope. So, but it was touch and go there for a bit. We thought that was going to be it, but it looks like she's pulling through. She's, I guess, a tough old bird, 89 years old and still feisty. So,
Do you want to share with us what it was?
well,
or-
she has a tumor in her off of her uterus. It's not in the uterus, but it's it's adjacent
Attached to
to the
the other
uterus.
wall?
Yeah, and it's she developed an infection. She developed a blood infection, and she was scheduled to have surgery for the tumor right about the time that she was she was scheduled for surgery on the Friday. She went into the hospital on Tuesday. She was actually getting ready to go to have surgery when this infection cropped up. And of course, you cannot operate on somebody who's got an infection because, it causes all sorts of problems and complications and dangers. And she's already sort of compromised because she has a weak heart. She has some breathing difficulties. So they were concerned that if they operated on her, and the infection was complicating everything, and they're still concerned that if they operate on her, if she's not strong enough, she might not survive the operation, which of course would be counterproductive. Which would be better to just not do the operation and just let time pass and whatever, than to shorten her life by putting her on an operating table and possibly truncating everything. So we're there. We're there right now. We're still sort of waiting for a lot of tests and results and determinations. She's in the palliative care sector of the Jewish General, but she's not necessarily on palliative care. Okay. So it's kind of we're sort of between waters here. We don't know exactly where we're headed.
But you did say she is improving.
But she is improving. Today, she actually stood up, which is, she hadn't stood up until when we brought her to the hospital. She actually was mobile. We walked her out of her house, and we walked her to the emergency, and then they put her in a wheelchair. But since she got sat in a wheelchair and then put on a stretcher, she hadn't walked since May 19th. But today, she actually got up and took a few steps, and it was like, okay, that's promising. That's definitely going in the right direction. So we're going to go see her tonight and see how her spirits have also gone up. She really had a really tough time of it. The infection caused her to have blood clots in her lungs that they were really concerned about, because if she threw a clot, then all hell could break loose. Essentially, she could have stroked out. She could have, number of things could have happened. Mm-hmm. So apparently they got rid of the infection, and the clots have dissipated. So it's like,
good,
hallelujah.
Good. Yeah, that's
hallelujah.
all good news.
Yeah. So that's it's essentially, in a nutshell, that sums up where we are right now. We're still not out of the woods, or we still haven't got a determination, but things are looking up. So that's always
Glad to hear she's kicking its ass at 89 years old.
89 years old. Yeah, I know. I'm my mother-in-law is 89 years old. My mother's 89 years old, and I just went to see on the weekend. I just went to see my parents, my mom and dad, who still live in their home. My mom's 89. My dad's about to turn 94. They're still both fairly mobile, healthy. My mother has some arthritic knees. My dad has a little bit of lung issues, congestion and stuff. But they're both still like very aware, and their cognitive faculties have not diminished immensely. So we're like, wow. And I'm like so unbelievably thankful that I still have them around, but yet I'm still also like, yeah, it's just like.
And I'll say this as someone who has like an aging grandfather that I love dearly.
Mm-hmm.
It gets stressful as they get older. The realities of reality, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but like you fear for everybody, and so it gets that point where you're just like,
get out of here alive.
And exactly. In the back of your mind, it's inevitable, but you're still sort of like hoping that you want to push it back as far as you can. And this pandemic hasn't helped because it's essentially isolated them from their kids. My mom from her son and daughter, my mother-in-law from her son and daughter, and my mom has had still. I have 4 sisters and a brother who still live in the vicinity of my parents. I'm the only one who's like removed out of the sort of like area. So they've not seen me. I think since the pandemic started, I think I've seen them all of 5 or 6 times. So it's been very sporadic and very like hit and miss, and of course you're always wondering, you're always trying to stay safe and keep them safe. So but so far so good. But again, it's taken 2 years of everybody's life, but it's also taken 2 years of their lives that we'll never get back. And you're thinking, when the time comes, you're going to go, geez, those 2 years, I wish I could have them back. Yeah. What you going to do? This is what we're facing. This is what we're dealt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm bringing everybody down here, but actually, it's an up thing because we're looking at a positive direction for my mom-in-law. So
I feel it's downer to talk about it like theoretically, but I feel really good that everything's kind of on an upswing. That's really nice to hear.
And talking does help about all kinds of things. So AJ, you've been doing a lot more of your Twitch streaming.
I've been doing politics, and like I do like gaming on Wednesdays just to not stress myself too hard about it. But and I've been learning a lot. I actually I started hanging out in a there's a political streamer I watch who's like an anarchist, just totally like very aware, but like not a leftist, not into like necessarily like voting your way into changing the world. Though he does vote, I found out he does do his best. But his community and him, it's all anarchism. It's all about like communal support and stuff like that. So while I've been radically left for like most of my life, I'm having a lot of fun being the leftist in an anarchist space. Like I constantly get roasted for like having hope, which is fun. But I'm learning a lot from these like, and it's funny because like I'll say like, oh,
how dare you be an optimist?
I'm hanging out with radical anarchists. So like, oh, they're like radicalizing me. Yeah. But in all fairness, whenever I think of like radicalization, especially being someone who's into politics, I just think like, well, what is radicalizing me? What is the goal? Like I feel like I'm a radical left, but like the radicalization is like progressive support for community. Like it's. I don't necessarily see radical as a bad thing if your radicalization is towards progressivism as opposed to radicalization towards authoritarianism. So I'm in radical communities being radicalized, but it's for progressivism, so it's hard to be like it's hard to look down on it.
I David Pride's anarchist joke I think is so brilliant. I had one which was more of an observation.
Yeah.
was I was kind of disappointed by the Anarchist bookstore because all the books were in order by the Dewey Decimal System.
Oh my lord, yeah. How dare they?
Yeah, but David Pride's joke.
What's
do you either of you remember it?
I don't remember. I think I may have heard it. I just don't. I've
seen him perform quite a few times. Yeah, it's hard to remember.
It's his joke was there was a protest happening with a bunch of anarchists, and I joined in. And I said, "Yeah, I'm just like you. I'm an anarchist. I get up each day to get ready, go to work, pay my taxes and take care of my family. And no, dude, that's not anarchism. Don't give me your rules."
Yeah, man. Exactly. Yeah, or like
that's not quite perfect, but that's
I went to join a big anarchist organization, but the fact that they had an organization kind of turned me off. like Antifa, it's a thing, No, it's like it's a bunch of people getting together, but it's not. There is no headquarters of Antifa. Like you're missing the whole fucking point.
The headquarters of Antifa.
Yeah, the headquarters. Yeah. I want to be unique, just like everyone else.
Cool. Anything else? What games are you streaming nowadays, AJ?
I'm replaying Final Fantasy X, which is when I was a kid. It's one of those games that like I got stuck on as a kid because you just come against a giant boss and the game was like, oh, you should have grinded 100 levels first. So now I'm grinding off stream and then playing on stream. So my characters look super ballsed out, powerful, but it's hours and hours of off stream just playing the same, running in circles, building my character up. So that's been the gaming adventure on my Wednesdays.
So seeing as there's a Final Fantasy X, I take it Final Fantasy 1 through 9 were misnamed.
Oh yeah.
It's what is it 14 or 16 it's at right now?
It's I think 16
oh really?
Is on its way now, yeah.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Infinity and Beyond.
Yeah.
Well it's a continuation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is funny because it is weirdly final because each one is completely independent of the rest. So each one is its own Final Fantasy, but like none of the stories end with the apocalypse or anything. So it's not that final.
Right. Yeah. As long as we can make money, it's never going to be final.
No. Oh, God, no.
I wish I could remember the name of it. A friend of mine told me about a game that actually you have to kind of finish twice. Because when you get to the end, like as you're playing, you can sort of request help. It's one of the few games that this person would play online because they don't like, online games. I won't say it's a paranoia, but he's worried about leaving his footprints, and but he would play it online because you could request help. We lost Mike, but you could request help, and so you'd get help from other players as you're doing this, or hints, etc.
Accidentally logged out there.
Yeah. And but at the end of the game, he's given the option to help other players.
Right.
But to do so destroys all your save data.
Oh.
Do you know the game?
I don't know the game off the top of my head, but I do remember a game that like there is a game that's like, yeah, you can help people, but you have to absolutely destroy your entire save file to be able to do that. I can't remember what game that is, but I do remember hearing about that and being like, that's a really cool idea. I know in Subnautica, when you finish the game, you leave the planet. So they're like, oh, here's a time capsule. You can throw something in and it'll randomly throw this, whatever item you put in the time capsule, it'll throw it into another player's game. and the only thing they tell you is like, don't put. You open it and it just pops up with a text screen that's like, don't put anything that's too end game. Like, don't be an asshole to another player and like give him end game content. Which is funny because it means that you can put end game content in there. You can do that. They're just like, come on, man, don't.
Be cool.
But I put a heat knife in because it's late game thing. But once you get it, it's like all it does is cook fish when you cut them. So that's I threw that into that end game. I was like, there you go, buddy. And then I destroyed my file to
fish sticks
to finish it. Yeah. But yeah, like I don't remember specifically. I almost want to look it up because I do remember. Because I remember there's a genuine value to disabling and destroying your save file to send the help. Like I know there's a reason to do it, a motivator, but I if I can't remember the game, I can't remember what the big motivator behind doing that was.
Okay, obviously not altruism.
I think it might be something like that. It's like you experienced the story and it was this good, and so like you can help someone experience that.
And that was the other one. It is altruism.
Yeah.
That you know, other than getting, the achievement or whatever.
Right.
But because, if you want to play the game again, you have to start from the beginning.
So the idea is hold on to your like perfect finished file or wipe it out, but like have that character or have those items move on to help someone else, and you're done. The idea is wash your hands of it, be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a good interaction last week, and one that was really nice.
Do tell.
It was after the Vaudeville show at the Wiggle Room. The sound tech, Luke Vale, said, "You were really good tonight. Nice. You're hosting at the top. Everything was it was so entertaining. You were really good." And I responded with, oh, well, it was a good crowd. It was easy. And he has, no, you were good. Because he recognized that deflecting a compliment is like a trauma sign.
Yeah.
And he made a point of having me accept the compliment.
Acknowledge it, yeah.
Acknowledge it. And acknowledge that,
I tend to be dismissive of compliments as well. And my wife says, stop doing that. Stop doing that. When somebody tells you something good, accept it and thank them. Just take it. Gratitude. She says, be grateful, not dismissive. And she makes, perfect sense.
I had a joke inspired by my first wife and was saying it while we were still married. It's my wife keeps on telling me I apologize too much. Sorry?
That's our Canadian side, though. Really.
Yeah.
We're predisposed to apology.
Well, apology, like constant apologizing or defaulting to apology is it's not PTSD, but it's a trauma sign to abuse.
Yeah. It's a defense mechanism as well.
Yeah.
It's like you're really sort of preemptively
avoiding the consequences.
Yeah. Or conflict. Them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yay.
And we're a nation that lives next to what's purportedly the greatest country on earth, we've always had this, I think, national sense of not inferiority, but of like we're self-deprecating. We diminish ourselves because, my God, we certainly don't want to be mistaken for Americans.
we have the very like the British bloodline as well. That that very roasting ourselves and not taking ourselves too seriously, and then adding
Brits are great at self-deprecation.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a really good book by a Canadian author, Will Ferguson, and it's called Why I Hate Canadians. I have the 25th year anniversary edition, but I highly recommend it. It talks about the Canadian identity and the fact that in Canada being number one is kind of looked down upon. because we live so close to a nation that's constantly shouting, "We're number
right,
one."
We're number one. We're number
Yeah.
one.
That we automatically assume to get number one, there was cheating involved.
I mean,
And so so there's more prestige to being number two, right? And it's also goes into the idea that Canadians are quiet and polite. And so you're quiet and polite compared to, people from the United States. You put 10 Canadians and 10 Japanese in a room, and
you get an
you're going to
apology
find
fest.
out. Well, no, you're going to find out who's loud and rude,
Right.
and it's not the Japanese.
No.
no, that's like it's always funny to me. Like I've mentioned this in the anarchism chat room, is that like the only like sense of nationalism that I'll take is just like polite Canadian. Absolutely, I feel pride in just that layer. And then as soon as someone investigates and they're like, "Oh, Canadian, eh? What about?" And I'm like, "Let's not go there. Like, we're polite anyway. Let's sweep all that other Canadian shit under the rug real quick."
Yeah, but some people have postulated that our politeness is actually passive aggressive.
Yeah.
That we're so polite that we make other people feel bad just by being polite.
It is funny though, because when I leave Montreal, Quebec, and I go into other places in Canada, even as a Canadian in other places in Canada, I'm like, holy fuck, these Canadians are polite.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a friend of mine actually postulates that a Canadian will of course say sorry. Like if they're walking down the street and it's not their fault and somebody bumps into them, falls down, the Canadian will immediately say sorry.
Yes. But
if the person goes, "You better be sorry," the Canadian will go off on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's I can't really fault that. I think that is that it would be a pretty common Canadian reaction. World War I, Canadian troops were known for their viciousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fearlessness. They because there hadn't been, since the War of 1812, there had been no domestic interaction with opposing forces. They just like, let me at them. So
most of the other countries involved, it was kind of the same. Just the U.S. had their Civil War.
Yeah.
Then there was the Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay,
I did want to say quickly, Paul, that I appreciate. I don't know if I mentioned this to you already, but I appreciate when we discuss like world history, because when I was on stream, we were talking about like Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And we definitely don't have to get into it. It's gotten nuts over there. But I did talk about and looked up, and we did like a reading about like the embankment of Kiev in World War II. And so the only reason I knew about that, and the only reason I could talk about like Russia's attacks on Kiev and Russia trying to break Kiev, and I could actually use the information you taught me to be like, oh, like let's look at the history of Kiev actually being like a battle-ready city. And so I wanted to let you know last week and maybe even the week before that, and forgot that like I appreciate talking about that stuff with you. It genuinely helps me on my stream, and then actually learn something, which is the whole idea of the stream.
Yeah,
I like doing comedy about history.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially history that's been somehow forgotten or discounted and comes back to relevance. It's like, yeah, we've been there before, this seems familiar. Yeah, because we did it like 50 years ago.
I did a short stint of doing regular stand-up comedy with an Irish accent, and I had a joke that you would hit here about Canadian history.
Right.
That would hit here in Montreal, and I did it in Ottawa.
Yeah,
and they got so offended. This foreigners telling us.
Oh my!
I had the chance to go to Prince Edward Island, and Prince Edward Island, they have a town of Charlottetown, which is very proud of the fact that it is the home of Confederation. Now, do you know which were the four provinces, actually 3 provinces that joined Confederation right away, and how they did that? We got a cat on the screen, which is going to make some people happy.
Hey.
There we are.
Hey, there we go.
And so there was three. There's the three provinces. The three provinces were Upper Canada,
Yes.
which is the southernmost one, and then Lower Canada, which is above that, which is nowadays Quebec, and then Nova Scotia is the one that had to change because the other two places, Upper and Lower Canada, said you have too much of a population base. You're too big. You're gonna just dominate us. So we won't join unless you split in half, and that's how New Brunswick was born. Do you notice who's missing from that list of the four first provinces of Canada?
PEI.
Yes, yes.
The place where the
like if your
conference was
neighbor
held.
decides to make a big stew and says, "No, you try it first."
That's
so
a great
it's like
joke.
all these little historical takes going along,
Yeah.
and if I do it as me,
Yeah. It's better.
It's not as funny because it's not
as
an
funny, but
observation from outside.
It's also not. Yeah, it's also not like sticking it a little bit too.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make you do it here because one of my favorite jokes you have is like a historically relevant, really intelligent joke, but it's like
Me?
yeah, but it's like 2 minutes of setup that like you told me this joke in a parking lot at Comic-Con because you were like, it doesn't really work on stage a lot because it starts off really sounding really ignorant and mean and unaware for like a minute, and then it ends with a really good joke. The problem is I don't want to like misphrase it because it sounds really awful. But it was one of my favorite jokes that you said. But it was like it was super historical, but it like starts off sounding ignorant and then turns into an incredibly like historic joke about some context sensitive crap. But I wanted to say that your jokes with history, even the ones that seemingly only I remember, are really fucking funny.
Could you give me more of an idea what this joke is?
I'm gonna write some of the words in the chat because I don't want to misphrase it because it's
all right. Well, I've got to do. I guess I'm gonna have to.
You're gonna have to
through
read
my
this a
old
little bit.
notebooks.
Yes.
Yeah, because that
I
would have been
just-
4 or 5 years ago. Then.
yeah, it would have been a little while ago because this was like in Ottawa Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to where we were talking about, like you said, 10 Japanese and 10 Canadians. The Japanese are, as a nation, or as a people, very, very polite. But to them, it's because their reluctance to offend is like so ingrained. They have a very high sense of personal honor, and to insult someone is actually very, very, very badly looked upon. Like, you can insult somebody, but the person who's insulted will get the sympathy of any bystander, and you will be shunned. As like you insult somebody, you become instant asshole, and your honor is like attacked because they really, really have this very high, like, oh my God, no, we can't do that, like
it's not quite as simple as that. Like there's like you are expected to sort of as like a salaryman, you're expected to go out and drink with your boss after, especially if it's like a new job.
Yes.
If you drink so much that you actually even like vomit or do something rude with your boss, it's all forgotten.
Yes.
Because it doesn't count.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance in there.
Well, their society is very stratified.
This is weird.
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about Canadian stereotypes, I have no problem. I love digging into it. When we start talking about stereotypes from other nations, I begin to go.
Yeah, it's funny. Right before Russia attacked Ukraine, I was having these like thoughts in the back of my head where I was literally like, everything I know about Russia has come from media sources my entire life. Like, I'm not one to be like, oh, everything's fake news, but obviously, like, news has an agenda. There are propagandas at play in the world in general. Mm-hmm. So part of me was like, I know nothing about Russia as an actual historic country, as an actual like I don't. All I've known is Russia's been the bad guy until Afghanistan appeared, and then as soon as we stopped using Afghanistan, it was right back to Russia. So I was just like, I don't know if I know anything. And then Russia attacked Ukraine, and I was like, all right, good thing I didn't say anything out loud.
Yeah. I used to do a joke about Pussy Riot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's how I discovered like I did a transition of our Western perception of Russia that has happened during my life. It's like Russia was a big scary bad guy, then they became the scary bad guy that you could bribe with blue jeans.
And Pepsi.
And they were also always trying to catch moose and squirrel.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. And then they sort of like they became our friends, and they all came down and they sort of became like a member of the community, but sort of
there's
like
still a little
heavy
standoffish.
drinker at the same time.
Yeah.
And then finding out how members of the LGBTQ A1 plus grouping is treated there.
Right.
That was like finding out that drunk uncle had like a bunch of children's clothes in the basement.
Yeah.
Like, is a little creepy. And the way I found out was like from Pussy Riot, which is technically my third favorite way to die.
What a lot of people, I think, especially with the focus on Russia now with the Ukrainian situation, is that a lot of people fail to realize that Russian society, Russia as a nation, if you will, is really not a monolithic entity. There's various areas of Russia that are completely different from the area around Moscow, St. Petersburg, the eastern part, the western part of Russia, completely like there's areas of eastern Russia, like, that have next to no commonality with what we perceive as Russia, St. Petersburg, Moscow, that whole.
And the fact that we mostly perceive the military wing of Russia for the most part. We don't really know what Russian people are like. We just always go like, Russia, military, correct?
Because my brother-in-law dated a woman who was from Uzbekistan, and that was when she left there when it was still part of the Soviet Union, and she had completely different take on things about life, and she had. She did not come off as a Russian, if you will. She was of Russian extraction. She lived in Uzbekistan, but she was surrounded by, the Uzbek people who were. It's just like it's like China's also not a monolith. It's got various tribes and various subcultures that, to some extent, they have their own identities, and even though there is a large percentage of them that is kind of a melting pot, they're still sort of culturally different from the others, in cuisine and in the like there's still agrarian sections of China that are not industrialized, that life there is like 200 years ago, and they're not interested in the politics and the bullshit, and they were subjected to, especially under the communist regime, under Maoism, these people suffered immensely. So it's like, it's just historically sometimes you think, that country was like this. It's like
it's like a lot of bad sci-fi that this planet has one biome.
Yes.
One culture, one
culture,
one nation. Like, but the same can be said about Canada. There's a very disparate. It's when you have such a large territory, you're going to have very disparate cultures.
The U.S. as well.
It kind of blew my mind when I went to I think it was Moncton, New Brunswick, and I just was speaking a completely different language from these completely English Canadians, but it's a whole different dialect, and that alone, like, forget about the like subcultures, pop culture, and all that stuff, but like you go there and you're just talking to normal Canadians, and you can understand them, but like suddenly you're like, no, I got to take a second to re-say what he said in my head, because some of them have thick Canadian accents, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah.
Holy God.
Yeah.
The accents are different. Like the traditional Canadian accent is, I think it's the Ottawa Valley accent.
Yeah.
Like the Bob and Doug McKenzie, it's like Ottawa Valley to me. But
but if you go to like those, if you go to those like Canadian cities that like, or Canadian towns that close by like 8 p.m., they have a whole accent, like a whole accent that you're just like, what the fuck? It's not even the how you doing there, bud? It's I can't even imitate it because I heard it once when I was in the city on tour with like a band, and I ever since leaving there, it's stuck in my head, but I cannot imitate it. It's so weird. And it's
which city?
Like we went west, East Coast. So we went East Coast. So we went as far as Halifax, but like we were in like Liverpool, New Brunswick, and we were in like Liverpool, Moncton. There was another place. I think Liverpool was the place that had the like the most insane accent. Was this like small town in like Liverpool?
Yeah. Okay. They're sort of a cross between, because like there's like about 7 different regional accents in Nova Scotia alone.
Yeah, so getting like closer to that area was when it started to get wild.
There's like 2 in Cape Breton. There's Liverpool, Bridgewater sort of have a lot of how's it going kind of thing. But you get down to like Yarmouth, if you continue south from there, then you have it's almost like a Maine /
New Englander
Boston accent. Yeah. It's, well, we got to get in the car. We're going to be doing this here in Yarmouth. And
I think the how's it going accent, like the one string, how's it going, like that's kind of what I experienced in Liverpool was people just no stopping between any statement. So when you had to reparse it in your head, all you were doing was separating the word. But for the
inserting
most part,
punctuation.
For the most part, it was just shotgun sentences, no punctuation. So that was that's kind of what I experienced there.
The funniest thing about that is that you're there and you're immersed in this, and they're all speaking, but you immediately stick out as you're from away. You're not from here, are you? Because I speak like this, and you guys are just like, oh my God. So it's like you become the foreigner.
You are the oddity. Yeah, you're the fish out of water.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Which, when it comes to doing comedy, is sort of like, that's a great charm turn.
Yes.
Right. That's something you can use.
Yeah.
I mean, probably one of Canada's like historically greatest comics, Derek Edwards.
Yeah.
He's from Timmins, and he has a different speaking cadence.
Yes. Northern Ontario cadence. Yeah. I've lived in Northern Ontario, and it definitely is a cadence that's different.
Which is funny, because I've mostly been in city Ontario and like deep into like the cityscapes of Ontario, and like pretty normal accent. But like go to rural Ontario, head north Ontario, you start getting the wild accents and hard to understand.
And Derek would actually sort of like endear himself. He was the guy that really sort of was the example to point to as somebody who will write a local joke to open his set with. And so he would come up and he would say something about the locality, and they go, oh, look, this country guy has got us.
Yeah.
Right. And then
it's a good
I think when we're talking about the Canadian accent and the fact that it's the Ottawa Valley thing, I think the perfect Canadian accent of any comic that I have ever heard is Mike McDonald.
Yeah.
Norm Macdonald also was very much in that, had that sort of cadence and had that rhythm, and both Mike McDonald and Norm.
Glenn Foster
as well.
A strong Ottawa Valley accent.
Very much so. Yeah, Glenn Foster. I would.
And the comical versions of all these would be Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's the one that most Americans were exposed to.
Yeah, it is funny that Bob and Doug McKenzie is like it's back to stereotypes. It's funny because people would be like, oh, like Bob and Doug McKenzie, what Canadian stereotypes? But as Canadians, we are like, no, I know a Bob and Doug.
Yeah,
Like,
I know several of them.
Yeah, that's not as like
It's not as
not
cartoonish.
really an exaggeration.
they're not making that like for sure. Those two actors, I like.
Yeah.
Like had real friends like that and have had hangouts like that because we all have at some point met people that you're like, oh wow, you are just a drunk.
I've met a stuntman who worked on Strange Brew.
Oh
Nice.
my, yeah.
And where the van goes into the lake.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first stunt of that type done in Canada.
Oh, wow.
And he was the driver.
Wow.
Historic.
And he does say that like he did it far cheaper than he probably should have because cocaine was cheap. But he had been been reformed. He's in retirement now, but this guy was a staple on the Montreal acting scene, like just doing all kinds of stunt work even late into his years. Like if you saw an old man fighting in something that was filmed in Montreal, that was probably him.
Probably him, yeah.
Honestly, stunt work is like, I don't necessarily care about Hollywood stuff at all, but like whenever I see that argument come up where they're like, stunt work should be Academy Awarded. It should have an Academy Award.
There should be a category for stunt work. Yeah.
It's the one thing that I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna throw my hat into a conversation about like what Hollywood should do, respect your stunt actors. As someone who barely likes movies, sometimes seeing a guy get rocketed through a window, I'm like, that man deserves an award.
Yeah.
Defenestration.
Yes,
Defenestration. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
And to go back to patriotism a little bit, the Bill Hicks had the joke about what should be on a flag. Like, you know, you're only from that place because your parents fucked here.
Yeah.
And so what should be on the flag is you look up and you know your buddy's beside you. Is that your mom? You know, your parents being fucking is what's on the flag. Like a lot less people will salute it.
Yeah, or respect it. Yeah, or willing to die for it.
Well, you know, a chance for my parents to enjoy themselves. I
would fight for that.
I would fight for that too. They deserved it.
It would just, I think the propaganda for getting you into the military would be much weirder.
The oath of allegiance would take on a whole different.
Your mom under God and your dad.
under your mom, under your dad. Yeah.
and I just I never thought about like recruitment videos being the mainstay of Pornhub.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's a mom or a stepmom.
You got to do your duty.
Yeah, step up for stepmom or or mom or what? Duty.
I mean, it's all unrestricted on Pornhub now.
Oh my Lord.
Proud Montreal company.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
Yes. Pride of Montreal.
Speaking of Proud Montreal company, didn't Chris Sandiford write for Pornhub in Montreal for a little while?
No.
Was it which comedian? He edited that. Okay, so Chris Sandiford edited for Pornhub, which
we probably shouldn't be saying that because
he's blowing up.
Yeah.
Chris Sandiford is in a new sitcom coming out.
Yes, with Melissa
on Netflix.
Melissa McCarthy
and her husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's got a pretty primary role.
Yeah,
so.
and I'm not necessarily.
And the premise is actually hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not a big daytime I don't know what to call it, but like standard media guy. Like maybe I'll watch geek stuff if I'm really feeling up to it, but for the most part, I don't really dig in. But honestly, respect to Chris. I've liked him for a long time. I love his comedy. I'll watch the show. I'll put some numbers behind that show. Even if I play it in the background, I'm going to put some numbers on that show. I want him to get a season 2. I want him to continue to succeed. It's awesome whenever he pops up in like TD commercials on my phone, but it's even better when I see him in trailers. I actually, when Moonfall came out, I didn't see the movie, but I listen to all like my favorite podcasts that talk about movies, talk about it, just to see if anybody mentioned him. And of course, he had like a speaking role, but he was like the scientist's sidekick. So like,
Right.
who cares? But like to see him stepping up every time he shows up makes me really really happy for him. And even like I say, Chris Sandiford and I are friends. We've talked a few times. I consider us friends, but like we didn't like, hang out independently very much other than comedy shows. But like I don't know. To this day, every time I see him, I'm like, yeah, Chris, get the bag. Let's see. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Chris is, and yeah, he's a good person. He does, he treats people with respect, which is so good to see. And he still helps out with like BattleCom when he can.
Yeah,
and he's
Chris is good. Chris is good, folks. Yeah.
Though I gotta say, his Instagram is beginning to look like Playgirl.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm just so
he's
happy.
He's become a thirst trap. Yeah, which I'm envious. He always used to complain about growing up as a chubby kid.
Yeah,
he's handled that. He's taken that to the bank.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
we've been all over the place today.
Yeah, we are.
It's 2 weeks of no chatting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, exactly. Just all the things to get out.
Yeah.
Though I have a lot of stuff to get done today. Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about?
Oh, I just wanted to shout out to
Lise?
Not to least Claudio, because he's got a doctor's appointment. I hope everything's working out for you, Claudio. I hope everything is good.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully see you next week.
Yeah.
And I'm good. I think this has been a fun little chat. And sorry, I started off on a sort of downer note, but
it gave us nowhere to go but up. So, and I think we helped improve each other's moods.
Yeah.
Right. AJ, you're okay. Wednesdays you're doing your gaming stream.
Yeah, Monday and Friday it's political. So like at 4:00 today, I'll probably be going live and probably looking into the trigger laws that went off after Roe v. Wade gets canceled. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that are to go off because it's not canceled yet.
Well, yeah, but I want to look at the trigger laws that are supposed to go off when it's canceled. So
yeah, is it 15 states that have them?
Yeah. Trigger
it's
laws
ridiculous.
That make Plan B worth a $50,000 fine and all kinds of fun stuff.
Handmaid's Tale was not a roadmap. It was actually a warning. These people just don't fucking get it.
Actually, the author of Handmaid's Tale said, for all the people that are referencing a Handmaid's Tale on this, is not exactly the same thing because the story of the Handmaid's Tale comes after a large epidemic and oh no.
Yeah.
Or a large pandemic. Was it epidemic or pandemic? I can't remember exactly how he said it.
So.
Yeah. So
and this is what bugs me. I'll just say this: that the conspiracy theorists are going to be like, "Oh, we told you that bad things were going to come after the pandemic." It's like, no. Those that have been paying attention have been warning about this for over 10 years. Don't think that you're correct because this happened. This is
don't be revisionist.
This is what we've been warning you. This is why Roe v. Wade is even in your lexicon because we've been talking about this for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're just now paying attention, so you think it has something to do with your conspiracy. It doesn't. This is what political awareness is.
Well, actually, it's more like preemptive revisionist history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I've due to circumstances that have befallen us, everything for me is on hold still. I mean, I'm still writing material and doing stuff I'm projecting in the future that I will get back on stage and I will get some. I'm so jonesing for stage time, but I'm still sort of like, okay, when it comes, it will come. But I've obviously got stuff on my plate that I've have to attend to. So, that's my future right now, my immediate future, and I will tend to it and dedicate myself to it as I should.
Cool. I'm actually going to be hosting at the Nest tomorrow night.
Good.
And Wednesday Vaudeville is back. My good friend the Love Doctor is hosting that one. So onwards and upwards, hoping for more stuff. I had a thought in my head, but yeah, I think we all are, but it's sometimes it's good to say it, that we are thankful for the people in our lives that,
Yes.
you know, to have, to hold, to keep us a little grounded and sane. So
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, on that note, I did want to say that I appreciate this, because without it last week, I didn't realize how much I do enjoy.
Yeah, I really missed it the last couple of weeks too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So,
like there was a hole. It's like, oh, it's Monday. Something's missing.
Yeah.
Thank the two of you for being so stalwart and being part of this. It's greatly appreciated.
It's a lot of fun.
Take care, everybody. And,
Everybody take care. Be safe.
Yeah.
Be well.
Exactly.